We were best friends for 12 years, Sean Douglas and I, until one day we woke up in the same bed. Sean joked that he'd take responsibility. I just laughed and kicked him in the leg. Get lost, we're both guys. Don't be so dramatic. We tacitly agreed to bury the accident. He went on being the straight guy, and I went on being the closeted gay man. So when my secret crush was exposed, I wasn't surprised to see Sean flee in a panic. The next time we met, Sean was uncharacteristically dressed up like a peacock showing off its feathers. I ignored his scorching gaze and pulled the man beside me closer. Let me introduce you. This is my new boyfriend. Chapter 1. Drinking really messes things up. Those were the only words in my mind when I woke up next to Sean Douglas. Sean's bare arm was draped over my waist, his hot breath hitting the side of my neck. A dull ache throbbed from behind me. I took a deep breath, propped myself up, and reached for the cigarettes on the nightstand. The moment I moved, Sean woke up. His voice was low and raspy from sleep, tinged with a lingering sexiness. Morning, babe. I had no idea who he thought I was. I took another deep breath and patted his cheek. Sean, open your eyes, see who I am. I could physically see Sean's body go rigid. He opened his eyes and met my gaze, then rubbed them as if he were still dazed from sleep. Finally, he sat up, running a hand through his messy hair. Give me a smoke, too. In the early morning light, we finished a post-coital cigarette. Sean was the first to speak. Nice body. Feels good after waiting all this time. That was the line he came up with. I nearly choked on the smoke. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him raise his hand as if to pat my back, but he stopped halfway and lowered it again. Don't worry, I'll take responsibility for you. You're not an untouched bachelor anymore, Sean joked. After 12 years of being inseparable, I knew him well. He was acting like a careless jokester, but he was actually incredibly uncomfortable. After all, Sean Douglas was straight. While he wasn't exactly a player, he'd had his fair share of girlfriends, and he introduced every single one of them to me. I knew his type: long, straight black hair, big eyes, a small face, a soft waist, and slender legs. None of which described me in the slightest. I smiled at him and kicked him hard in the leg. Get lost, we're both guys, don't be so dramatic. The blanket slipped down, exposing my upper body, which was covered in purple and blue bruises. The atmosphere, which had just started to ease, became awkward again. Seeing Sean grow more and more uncomfortable, I sent him out to buy breakfast. Let's just call this an accident. What's past is past. Chapter 2. Sean was the kid from next door, the classic boy next door from my parents' stories. When I was a kid, while I was out chasing cats and teasing dogs, Sean would be at his desk, diligently doing his homework. I'd poke the cactus he kept on his windowsill with a branch half my height. Sean, come out and play. Sean refused. He had to do his homework, so I kept poking. I destroyed a new pot of his cactus every few days, until he finally gave up on keeping plants there. From breaking windows with a slingshot to skipping school for shady internet cafes, Sean was always the one who cleaned up my messes. I was a wild child with no one to discipline me. Over time, Sean's mom became a sort of second mother to me. She'd scold me and discipline me when needed, but she'd also secretly wipe away tears when I came home with a bloody face after a fight. I practically lived at Sean's house, always by his side. I don't know if it was from spending too much time with me, but Sean eventually learned to skip class, smoke, fight, and even date. His school uniform hung loosely on his shoulders as he stood with one arm around a gentle, well-behaved girl, giving me a smug smile. Leo Lee, this is my girlfriend, pretty, right? My budding crush was extinguished by the cold drizzle of the rainy season. For the first time in my life, I regretted teaching Sean to be bad. Chapter 3. We tacitly agreed to move past the incident, but the atmosphere in the car was still a bit awkward. My head was fuzzy, so I squinted my eyes and pretended to sleep. Sean always drove smoothly. Soon, the music in the car was turned down and the temperature was adjusted to a comfortable level. When I woke up again, the car had already stopped. Sean's voice was low. He was on the phone with someone. That girl is nice, but she's not my type. Mom, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. I caught the faint scent of smoke, mixed with the clean fragrance that always clung to Sean. I belatedly remembered that Sean's mom had set him up on a blind date. My throat felt a little dry and itchy, but I was too lazy to speak. I just waved a hand and opened the car door to get out. I nearly tripped and fell flat on my face. A strong hand grabbed my arm and I was pulled into a warm embrace. Sean's hand pressed against my forehead. You have a fever, don't push yourself. Smack. My body reacted faster than my brain. I slapped his hand away. Sean hadn't had time to extinguish the cigarette in his hand. Afraid of burning me, he instinctively crushed it into his palm. He frowned, but his reaction was minimal. I, however, felt he was in some unspoken pain. "Sorry, are you okay?" Sean didn't answer. After a moment he spoke, his voice a bit hoarse. "What happened today was my fault, but you have a fever. I have to take care of you. Once you're better, you can do whatever you want to me. I don't care." I fell silent and let him help me walk toward my apartment building. The hallway was dark, with motion-activated lights that only turned on when you reached the right floor. Because of this, I didn't immediately see the person crouched by my door. The moment I stepped out of the elevator, the dark figure lunged at me, about to grab my hand. I felt a sharp pain in my waist as Sean pulled me back, followed by the sound of a heavy thud. The hallway light flickered on. I saw the face, contorted in pain. It was my own father. Chapter 4. Rick Lay only ever came looking for me for one reason: money. Before he could even speak, I cut him off. "I don't have any." It took Rick a moment to find his voice. "Bullshit. You've moved into a nice apartment complex like this. How could you not have a dime?" Then, as if he'd thought of something, he gave a lewd smile. "Sean, aren't you afraid I'll tell everyone about your filthy little secret?" Rick Lee knew something. He knew I was in love with Sean. Because of this, he held my life in his hands. For years, I had given in to nearly all his demands. It was a pathetic way to live, but I had so few things in my life. Sean was the most important of them all. I couldn't bear the cost of losing him, but today I suddenly felt tired. Sean was already unlocking the door with his key. Seeing my inaction, he grew anxious. "Sean, you think I'm a disgusting homosexual, but do you think my son isn't?" Sean glanced back at him, his eyes colder than I had ever seen them. Just before the door closed completely, Rick shouted one last thing. "I had a thing for your dad, and he has a thing for you. You're truly my son." As I stepped into the entryway, my face went pale. I violently pushed Sean away and rushed to the bathroom. I dry-heaved for a long time, but nothing came up. Bad genes really might be hereditary. Rick Lee's blood flowed through my veins, impossible to carve out. Sean leaned against the bathroom doorway, his expression calm as he looked at me, a pathetic mess on the floor. His hand, hanging by his side, twitched, but ultimately remained still. "Am I disgusting?" I asked him. "He's disgusting," Sean answered decisively, but said nothing about me. I looked at his slightly trembling hand and almost thought he was about to figure it out. I remembered a few weeks ago when Sean's mom had handed me a stack of photos of women, smiling as she said I was his best friend and would surely know his type. I had carefully picked one out, a sophisticated woman with big, wavy hair, chosen out of my own selfish desires. Sean didn't like that type. I knew what type he liked. No matter what, it would never be me. I was prepared to crash and burn, to give myself one last, desperate chance. But when the moment came, I chickened out. I met Sean's eyes and said calmly, "I'm pretty disgusting too. The thought of sleeping with my best friend makes me sick. Sean, let's not see each other as much anymore." Chapter 5. I heard from a friend that Sean hadn't been doing well lately. "You have no idea, he's like a lost soul. His wife probably left him," Charlie Shaw said, gloating. I laughed along with him. It wasn't a wife who left, but a brother. I'd said we should see each other less, but we both knew what that meant. Our relationship was now reduced to that of casual friends who might exchange greetings on holidays. My friendship with Sean had lasted 12 years. For it to be severed overnight was probably as painful for him as a breakup. But if I didn't do this, I was afraid the situation would only become more unbearable in the end. Sean's current girlfriend must be something special. I've never seen him like this after a breakup before. I took a sip of my drink and tried to remember what Sean was like when he was dating. He'd take his girlfriends out for meals, shopping, and movies. He never missed a holiday gift. He seemed to be the model boyfriend. Once, because he was busy with his startup, I even delivered roses for him. His girlfriend looked so happy when she received them. The smile on her face made me a little envious and a little jealous. But soon the expression on her face faded. "You're his best friend. Was Sean always like this before?" I frowned, confused. She thought for a moment more. "He's so gentle to everyone else, but I always feel like he's so far away from me." I didn't know why she was asking. With me, Sean was always that same infuriating guy, which created a sense of disconnect. Not long after, the two of them broke up. Sean crashed at my place and got completely drunk. He was sad, but mostly just confused. "Am I just not cut out for dating?" he asked out of the blue, staring at the movie playing on the TV. I'm already trying so hard to learn how to be a good boyfriend. I didn't know how to answer him. To reassure him would be a lie. To not reassure him would be too cold. I ultimately chose silence. He probably wasn't expecting an answer anyway. Sean quickly fell asleep. I turned off the TV, went to my room, and got a blanket to cover him. After smoking a cigarette on the balcony, I opened my calendar and counted the days. There were 56 days until my 27th birthday. I decided that before then, I would finally get some closure for my 10-year secret crush. Chapter 6. I saw Sean again at a dinner party hosted by Charlie. Sean and I had a ton of mutual friends. Everyone in his circle knew me, and everyone in my circle knew him, but no one knew that we had broken up. When Sean arrived, looking like he'd rushed over, the only seat left was the one next to me. This was because of a joke that started one time when Sean got drunk. He had forcefully squeezed out a guy sitting next to me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and refused to let go, insisting that was his spot. Ever since, our friends had tacitly arranged for us to sit together. My eyes met Sean's, and my first thought was that he had lost weight. His jawline was sharper, and he had an air of subtle despondency. As he sat down beside me, I caught his familiar, faint scent. The conversation briefly turned to him with a few jokes before quickly moving on. "Long time no see." Sean's voice was a little hoarse. He cleared his throat, feeling the awkwardness of the distant atmosphere. "How have you been?" It was such a cliché greeting. I never thought it would be used between us. "It hasn't been that long. I'm doing fine." "It's already been 36 days, Sean started, then seemed to realize something and stopped. The atmosphere fell into an unspeakable silence again. Charlie slapped the table, suggesting a game. After a few drinks, everyone was fired up and cheered in agreement. We played a finger-guessing game. The loser had to either drink or perform a dare. I always hated this game. I could never get the hang of it. But Sean was quick-witted, and almost no one could beat him. Today, however, for some reason, he didn't win a single round. He seemed distracted, and whenever he lost, he would punish himself with drink after drink, as if determined to get completely wasted. I snatched the beer bottle from his hand and slammed it on the table. The loud noise silenced the room. "Sean, that's not how you drink." Sensing the strange tension between us, no one else spoke. Sean leaned back in his chair, tilting his head back to look up at me, his eyes unfocused. "Didn't you say you were done with me?" Suppressing my anger, I drank all the alcohol Sean owed. "I'll play for him." I lost the very first round as expected, but I didn't want to drink, so I chose the dare. I drew a card. "Let the person next to you check your phone." Charlie, likely trying to ease the tension between Sean and me, designated Sean to do the checking. I tossed my phone to Sean. He knew my lock screen password, and I had nothing to hide from him. Sean's fingers tapped on the screen a few times, and then his expression changed slightly. He looked up at me. I suddenly had a bad feeling and glanced at the screen. The screen was open to my photo album, displaying a picture of someone sleeping. A picture of Sean sleeping. On the night I decided to burn all my bridges, I had secretly taken a picture of Sean while he slept. I thought I should at least keep one photo, a memento in case we never saw each other again. I thought Sean would check my social media. I never imagined he'd go through my photo album. I hoped Sean wouldn't understand the feelings behind the photo, but his expression made it obvious. That single photo was my death sentence. Now that the moment was here, I felt strangely calm. I took the phone back. When my fingers brushed against Sean's, they were frighteningly cold. I couldn't tell if it was his hand or mine. Seeing our strange expressions, someone tried to lighten the mood with a joke. "What's wrong? You didn't actually find something you weren't supposed to see, did you?" No, Sean's voice was a little too loud, losing its usual calm. His reaction was obviously out of character. Charlie seemed to sense something and laughed it off, getting everyone back to the party. The lively atmosphere returned, but the corner where Sean and I sat was trapped in a stark silence. Since our reunion, he had always been the one to initiate conversation. Now that the last veil had been torn away, I understood why he no longer wanted to reminisce. In truth, all the signs were there. My crush wasn't very subtle. It was a miracle it had remained hidden for so long. Fortunately, we probably wouldn't see each other again. I ignored the twisting pain in my chest and was about to speak, to give this final meeting a dignified end, but Sean spoke first. "Sorry, I didn't mean anything by it. I was just a little surprised." His expression was one I'd rarely seen, bewildered, like a newborn lamb, helpless against an unfamiliar shock. Although I was 2 months older than Sean, in our relationship, he had always been the one to take care of me. Perhaps it was because I was naturally reckless and had little to lose, so I always found new ways to get into trouble. And Sean would usually just quietly clean up my messes. Until one time I landed myself in the hospital. As I was hobbling out of the hospital with my leg in a cast, trying to sneak away, I ran right into Sean being brought in. There was still blood on his forehead, and the gauze in the nurse's hand was terrifyingly red. In that instant, my world spun, and my body began to tremble. My lifelong hemophobia, which had never surfaced in all these years, erupted at the sight of Sean. Sean didn't stop me. His eyes were cold, his voice just as cold, as he said only one thing: "Leo Lay, if you want to mess around, I'll do it with you." Sean never held a leash, nor did he want to chain me down, but I was the toy dog that circled around him. The switch was Sean's wounds, Sean's sadness, Sean's worry. Once triggered, I would always obediently return to his side and never leave again. Only now it seemed the batteries were finally failing. Chapter 7. When I got home, I took a few rare days off from work. My colleagues joked that the workaholic finally knew how to rest. What a rare sight. The truth was, I never used to rest simply because my life was monotonous and there was no need for it. From the wild child chasing cats and dogs to my current, regimented, almost retired lifestyle, it was hard to say whether it was because my reckless youth was over or because Sean's influence was just that profound. During this time, Charlie came to visit once. After so many years of friendship, there was no need to hide things. He could see that the atmosphere between Sean and me was off. What's going on? You're grown men, why are you acting like kids giving each other the silent treatment? Charlie asked with a laugh, seeming to think it was just a typical squabble. But in all our years of friendship, Sean and I had almost never had a real fight. He couldn't bring himself to scold me, and I couldn't bear to make him angry. They say that before a relationship completely breaks, there's often a period of revival, a last flare-up. I didn't know if that meeting at the party counted as one, but I just shook my head at Charlie. This time is different, it's for real. Seeing that my expression wasn't fake, the smile on Charlie's face slowly faded. You two have known each other for how many years? How can you just cut ties like that? Can you bear to, after being so emotionally exhausted for so long, I couldn't be bothered to hide it anymore. I laid it all out. I don't want to be his friend, I want to be his boyfriend. Is that a good enough reason to cut ties? Charlie's expression froze for a moment, but he recovered quickly, as if he had expected it all along. I should have known. The way you look at Sean when you're together, it would be weird if there wasn't something going on. I kicked him. Watch your mouth. As Charlie was leaving, he said one last thing, as if he'd been mulling it over for a long time. I don't think you're completely without a chance. Are you sure you won't even try? Try. I thought about it. Bet or not. Chapter 8. I quickly readjusted and threw myself completely into my work. I volunteered for a week-long business trip, keeping myself busy and fulfilled. The truth is, no one is indispensable to anyone else. I thought I could live just fine without Sean. On the surface, I was still doing great, but loneliness would always creep in through the cracks, seeping into my very bones. This wouldn't do. I had to start saving myself. I decided to let go of Sean, to let go of this 10-year hidden in the shadows crush, and start a new relationship. Chapter 9. The day I landed at the airport happened to be my birthday. Charlie had already made all the arrangements, insisting on throwing me a grand, unforgettable 27th birthday party to celebrate my entry into the ranks of older single men. I scoffed but didn't banter back. Thinking of something, the curve of my lips flattened slightly. You didn't invite him, did you? I didn't say a name, but we both knew who I meant. Charlie patted his chest. Don't worry, how could I possibly invite him? His words reassured me. Until I stepped through the door and among all the faces caught sight of Sean. That's when I realized Charlie had been playing word games with me. He said he wouldn't invite him, but that didn't stop Sean from asking to come himself. I should have known. From my 15th birthday until now, Sean had never missed one. Before I was 15, birthdays meant nothing to me because no one cared. After I turned 15, Sean started caring for me. Today, Sean was uncharacteristically dressed up in a white shirt, black trousers, and a camel-colored overcoat. He even had gel in his hair. He looked even more formal than me, the birthday boy. His eyes lit up when they met mine. He straightened his back slightly and raised a hand, as if to greet me. I waved in his direction and quickened my pace. Then I walked right past him, ignoring the arm he had raised for an embrace. I pulled the young man running towards me into my arms and said to everyone with a smile, "Let me introduce you. This is my boyfriend." Chapter 10. The coming out was so sudden, even I couldn't say if it was too impulsive at the time. But since there weren't many people there and they were all close friends, the matter was quickly smoothed over with a few jokes, except for Sean. He seemed to be frozen in time, not joining in the banter, just sitting there by himself. Although I wasn't looking at him, I could feel his gaze fixed on me. Once everyone was seated, he suddenly stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the tile floor. "I'm going to step out for a minute." Sean's pace was quick, his retreating figure looking almost panicked. Jamie Carter's gaze shifted from Sean, and after a moment of thought, he leaned in to whisper in my ear, "Bro, that's him, isn't it?" Sometimes I wondered if it was because we were the same, but Jamie's intuition was terrifyingly sharp. I had gotten to know Jamie after he broke up with his boyfriend and was drinking himself into a stupor at a bar, crying his eyes out. He was a colleague I had traveled with on business. I couldn't just leave him there alone, so I had to grit my teeth and stay with him, becoming his confidant. On the taxi ride back, he was quietly looking out the window at the scenery when he suddenly turned to me and said out of the blue, "Bro, you're one of us too, right?" I knew what he was talking about. I nodded. Perhaps because he had finally found someone like him, Jamie felt an inexplicable closeness to me, and we quickly became friends. As a friendly exchange, I told him some things about my life, though they were all fragmented details. But he was smart and pieced together the truth with near-perfect accuracy. On the way back, he suddenly winked at me. "Bro, if he's at your birthday party, do something with me." Chapter 11. Jamie dragged me to the restroom. He playfully pleaded with me, "I'm just going to the restroom, you have to wait for me right here, okay?" I couldn't help but laugh at his childish need for a bathroom buddy, but I nodded. A familiar scent of tobacco smoke drifted over. I followed it with my eyes and saw Sean, partially hidden behind a large potted plant. I glanced at him briefly before looking away, leaning against the wall to wait for Jamie. Footsteps slowly approached. In my peripheral vision, I saw Sean stub out his cigarette on the trash can, then walk to the sink to wash his hands. Finally, he stopped in front of me. We stood in silence for a long time before he spoke, his voice a bit raspy. "How long have you been together?" "Not long." The air in the room was stuffy. I felt an unusual wave of irritation and wanted to go outside for some fresh air. Suddenly, Sean grabbed my wrist tightly. His grip was strong and his tone was sharp. "Are you not even willing to say one more word to me now?" I had never felt so exhausted. I replied flatly, "I'm just going out for some air." Sean glanced back towards the restroom, then looked at me again, his eyes red. He finally let go, and we went out to the terrace together. I shook a cigarette out of the pack. As I was about to put it away, Sean stopped me. "Give me one." Sean held the unlit cigarette between his lips. I instinctively reached for my lighter to light it for him, but he just tilted his head, touching his cigarette to the one in my mouth like a kiss. I frowned, quickly pulling back the moment his cigarette was lit, re-establishing a proper distance. We stood in silence, just smoking. I saw Sean open his mouth to speak several times, but he always fell silent again. As the cigarette burned down to its end, he finally spoke. Is he really great? I wasn't sure who he was, but the moment I met his eyes, I knew. This should have been the outcome Sean wanted. I had a boyfriend, I had let go of my obsession with him, and we were back to being just regular friends. But in his eyes, I saw a bright, undeniable sadness. He's great. I suddenly lost the desire to fabricate a happy fantasy for him and just answered simply. Perhaps sensing my perfunctory reply, Sean took a harsh drag from his cigarette and said, "Leo, you're cruel." He inhaled so sharply that the smoke made his eyes water. The sound of a door opening came from behind us. I turned to see Jamie peeking out from behind the terrace door. He waved when he saw me looking. "Bro, am I interrupting?" I glanced at Sean, who seemed to have nothing more to say. I shook my head at Jamie. "No, let's go." We had only taken a few steps when Sean's voice came from behind, calling my name, "Leo, Lay." I stopped and turned back to look at him. "Are we still friends?" I nodded. "Of course," Sean said, "but I don't want to be your friend anymore." Chapter 12. It turned out that our last meeting really was the final flare-up. I had imagined many ways our relationship could end awkwardly, or with me being the one to walk away. I never expected Sean to be the one to end it. Jamie looked apologetic. "Sorry, bro, did I mess things up?" I shook my head. "It has nothing to do with you." Jamie had sworn to me that Sean definitely had feelings for me too, and all he needed was a little push. I hadn't believed him, but I agreed to his absurd act simply because I wanted Sean to feel at ease. But now, it seemed it was all for nothing. After this incident, Jamie felt incredibly guilty. He would often do small, harmless favors for me, and to lessen his guilt, I accepted them all. Until one night, Jamie called me suddenly, his voice low and urgent, filled with anger. "Leo, get over here, quick, that secret crush of yours is going crazy." Chapter 13. When I arrived at Jamie's apartment complex, I saw Sean tangled in a fight with another man. Sean fought fast and hard with no technique, as if he were simply venting his emotions. Sean rarely fought. He firmly believed that problems weren't solved with fists, but when I asked him why he learned Taekwondo, he gave me a roguish grin. In case you get bullied and come crying to me. Now his punches were wild, like he was just releasing pent-up feelings. He didn't react to the other man's counterattacks as if he had lost his sense of pain. Jamie was panicking beside them. He tried to pull them apart, stepping between them, and one of Sean's punches landed squarely on his side. I rushed over and steadied him. Sean's movements finally stopped. His reddened eyes fell on me, finally settling on the hand I had on Jamie. Jamie was bent over, rubbing his side, but his expression was a bit awkward. He explained in a low voice, "Leo, that's my ex-boyfriend." He didn't say more, but I understood what had happened. I patted his shoulder. "Are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital?" When he shook his head, I turned to meet Sean's eyes. "You guys go ahead. I'll explain things to him." Chapter 14. Sean was silent the entire way. Once we were in the car, he looked at my calm expression and finally exploded. "You like him that much? You're even defending him for cheating, telling him to leave first. What were you afraid I'd hit him again?" "Leo, how did I never realize you were such a love-struck fool?" "Are you done?" I asked, frowning. "No," Sean interrupted me. "You threw away our 12 years of friendship just like that. How long have you been with that guy to be so completely head over heels?" "Leo, you're really something else. If I had known he was the type to cheat, I never would have given you up to him." His chest heaved. He was spitting harsh words, but his expression was deeply hurt, as if I had wronged him terribly. His words were laughable. "How would you not have given me up, Sean? You're just my friend." He was silent for a moment, then suddenly laughed. "Leo, sometimes your brain works just fine, and other times I think you're hopelessly stupid. I told you I don't want to be your friend." I met his gaze, and a strong, inexplicable premonition washed over me. His next words confirmed it. "It's because I want to be your lover." Chapter 15. It was like a traveler trekking through the desert for too long, finally seeing an oasis just within reach. Now that it was here, I suspected it was just a mirage. I suddenly remembered that morning I woke up beside him, how he had held my waist and whispered "babe" in a tender voice. What were the chances of a straight guy of over 20 years suddenly turning gay after one night? He froze for a moment, then his face turned red. "I've never slept with anyone else. I thought you were Puff." Puff was the dog Sean had raised since he was a kid. The misunderstanding was so ridiculous it was almost funny. Sean's expression turned cold again. "What about you and Jamie Carter? I'm not planning on breaking up with him." My words nearly made Sean explode, but my next sentence stopped him cold, because he and I were never together in the first place. At this point, I decided to lay everything bare. "The photo you saw was real. Your guess was also real." "But Sean," I said, meeting his eyes, which couldn't hide their relief and joy, "a straight guy for over 20 years suddenly turns gay. How am I supposed to believe you?" Chapter 16. Lately, Sean had started appearing by my side frequently. Jamie sidled up to me. "Bro, is he pursuing you?" I hesitated for a moment, then shook my head, then nodded. I didn't know how to define my relationship with Sean now. We seemed to have returned to our old ways, but Sean would often focus on small details, making me feel something different. The combo meal for two we used to get at the movies was now a couple's combo, with only one Coke but two colorful, frilly straws. No matter how busy I was, I would always see Sean's car at the company entrance when I got off work. He'd be leaning against it, trying to strike a cool pose in the cold, not even worried about catching a chill. On the way home one day, I found a tiny kitten meowing in the bushes. I tucked it into my pocket and took it with me. Just as I was about to get out of the car, Sean stopped me. He said he had more experience with pets and would take care of it first, returning it to me once I had all the pet supplies ready. A few days later, he went back on his word. Sean smiled at me shamelessly. "They say a child is a good way to keep the mother around. If you miss him, you can just come to my place." I kicked him. He didn't dodge, his gaze softening as he looked at me and said again, his voice low, "If you miss me, just come find me, okay?" I mumbled a non-committal reply. After that, I had to go to Sean's house every week to see the cat. If I was busy or just didn't want to see his face and missed a week, Sean would show up at my door with the kitten, shamelessly squeezing his way inside, claiming the kitten missed me. Sean and the kitten didn't get along very well, and he got along even worse with Jamie. When I asked him why, he would clam up. Until one day, when we were at the mall, he suddenly stopped and stared in one direction. I followed his gaze and saw a claw machine. It looked pink and cute, not something Sean would typically like, but he was rooted to the spot, even trying to drag me over to win one for him. I laughed at him. Since when are you so childish? If you want one, win it yourself. Sean lowered his head and didn't speak. After a long moment he said, you won one for Jamie, but you won't win one for me. I froze, taking a moment to realize what he was talking about. During the time Sean and I had completely cut ties, Jamie often dragged me out. He said I shouldn't coop myself up alone or I'd get sick. It must have been during one of those outings that I casually won a doll for him. I tilted Sean's chin up with my fingers. Seeing he wasn't crying, I relaxed. Were you following me? Sean was silent for another long moment. I just wanted to be closer to you, to see you more. During that time, Jamie, out of guilt and a sense of friendly duty, had been especially attentive to me, almost inseparable. His eager kindness and concern must have looked like something else entirely in Sean's eyes. I turned my gaze away. What do you want? I'll win it for you. Sean's finger tapped on the glass. That one, the toy he was pointing at, was a light yellow pear. Leo, lay, I want that one, Sean emphasized again, because the word for pear, lie, sounds the same as Leo's surname. When the pear dropped into the prize slot, Sean bent down to get it, but I beat him to it. Sean, friendship can last forever, but love can end. Once you take this step, there's no going back. Have you thought this through? Sean smiled. If the price of that stability is watching you be with someone else, I'd rather take the risk. I tossed the pear toy to him. Then hold on to it. That's the only one. There are no more. I had only taken a few steps when I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Sean ran to my side and took my hand. I think the kitten really misses you. Why don't we head back now? Sean, you're not even pretending anymore. Also, your place is a bit small. It won't fit both of us. You can move into my house. Who said anything about moving in with you? Have you no shame?